Joshua chapter 1. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time in Joshua 1 because we've been nibbling at it a little bit. We've had some things to say about this transition from Moses to Joshua. There are some repeated phrases and expressions that the Lord says to Joshua. He says things like, "As I was with Moses, I will be with you. I will not leave you." He says things like, "Be strong and courageous." He says that multiple times to Joshua. Think about the shoes that Joshua is filling. And wouldn't it be nice to step into that intimidating role, leading this large nation of people, filling the shoes of a man as great as Moses was? Wouldn't it be great to hear God say to you, "I am with you, and I need you to be strong and courageous. We're going to do this together." Okay? So these are words of great encouragement to Joshua as he takes on this intimidating task. You obey all the words of the law that I gave to Moses. We're passing that down from Moses now to you, and you are going to fulfill not just this role of military leader, which Joshua's really already been doing anyways, even before Moses died, but now he's taking over as a spiritual leader of the nation as well, along with the priests, of course. So, time to fight. It's time to cross the Jordan. It's time to be courageous, and let's go do battle and take the promised land that God is giving us. But before we go into Jericho, Joshua is going to send in some spies to the land to investigate and find out, what do we need to do to take the city? What do we need to know about this place before we go? So the king of Jericho and all of the people of Jericho, they have been hearing about the Israelites. They've heard about what happened in Egypt. They've heard about the battles and the victories that they won over the Amorites and Sihon and Og and some of those that you remember from last quarter. The people of Jericho, despite the fact that they live inside this fortress city, they're worried. And so when the spies come to Jericho, in chapter 2 and verse 1, Joshua tells them, "Go and search the land, especially Jericho." So they went and came into the house of a harlot whose name was Rahab, and they lodged there. It was told the king of Jericho, saying, "Behold, men from the sons of Israel have come here tonight to search out the land." And the king of Jericho sent word to Rahab, saying, "Bring out the men who have come to you, who have entered your house, for they have come to search out the land." How many of you remember learning about Jericho when you were a kid in Bible class? This was one of the most fun Bible classes that I ever had as a kid. We talked about Rahab and the spies and the scarlet cord and what she did to help the spies. And then when we came to chapter 6, man, we built up those cardboard walls and we smashed them down. Boy, I remember that. That was a lot of fun. Okay, so this is familiar territory for us. Rahab receives the spies. How does she help the spies when they come to her house? She hides them from the king and the officers who are looking for them. The soldiers are pursuing these spies. She takes them up to the roof of her house. How does she hide them? Yeah, there's some stalks of flax and some barley there, and she buries them underneath that. I'm sure she offered them Zyrtec before she put them underneath there. She hides them underneath the flax, and when the soldiers come and search, well, they can't find them. So then when the soldiers leave, Rahab tells them, "I need you to make a deal with me. I have helped you, and I need you to help me." So in chapter 2 and in verse 8, before they lay down, she came up to them on the roof, and she said to the men, "I know that the Lord has given you the land, and that the terror of you has fallen on us, and all the inhabitants of the land have melted away before you. We have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea," and so forth. Verse 11, "When we heard it, our hearts melted, and no courage remained in any man any longer because of you. For the Lord your God, He is God in heaven above and on the earth beneath." I'm pretty impressed with Rahab. She comes into they come into the city and they find her, and we're told that she is a what? She's a harlot. And so our initial reaction to Rahab might be, well, she's not the kind of woman that's going to be useful in God's story. And yet she's very useful in God's story. She helps the spies. But look at the things that she says. Now, she doesn't know the God of Israel. She knows about him. She's heard things about him and what has happened with the Israelites and how he has helped them and so forth. But she doesn't know God in the way that Joshua does, or certainly not in the way Moses did. And yet, she knows enough about God to have faith. She knows enough about God to act in faith. And she helps these spies. She tells them about what they know about God and about the Israelites. And now in verse 12, she says, "Please swear to me by the Lord, since I have dealt kindly with you, that you will deal kindly with my father's house and give me a pledge of truth. Spare my father and mother and brothers and sisters with all who belong to them, and deliver our lives from death. When you come to take our city, and we know that you will, spare my family, because I have helped you this night." And the spies say, "Certainly, we will do that. When we come to take the land, if anyone of your family perishes in that, then their blood be on us. We agree." So Rahab helps them. They have this agreement together that they will not take the lives of her family. And now the spies come back to Joshua and they say, "The Lord has given this land into our hands. All the people are melting in fear because of us." I think it's interesting that Rahab is mentioned a few other places in the scripture. Chiefly, the one we think of most, I think, is in Hebrews chapter 11. She's mentioned there along with great men and women like Moses. She's mentioned in the same chapter as Moses because of her faith and how she helped the spies, how she acted because of what she knew about the God of Israel. All right. Now, at this point in the story, the spies are preparing, or the Israelites are preparing to take Jericho because of what the spies have done. So you read chapter 1, it's like, "Joshua, let's go. It's time to do this. Let's take the land. Be courageous. Be strong." Spies go in. "Hey, let's go. Everybody's afraid of us. Let's do it. Let's get ready." But something else has to happen first. And that's chapters 3 and 4. The Israelites are still on the eastern side of the Jordan. And so they've got to cross over the Jordan River. Now, the city of Jericho lie on the western side. It's the first city they're going to come to. It's not that far away. Those were not the slides I thought were coming up. I'm sorry. As I often say, it's not the wand, it's the wizard. Clearly, this is my fault. Okay. Well, there's some walls of the ancient city. You can see it here, the ruins of it, the foundations of it, but here is one of the actual walls. Looks pretty thick. That seems, I think I might could have lifted one of those stones, maybe, by myself. No, not quite. These are huge. This is very intimidating. These stones are very large, and yet the people inside the walls are the ones who are melting with fear. They hear about the power of God, and they know these walls can't do anything against that. All right, some archaeological digs have been done at the site. Again, just see the size of the stones surrounding this wall. All right, I'm going to skip over that and get to the one that I want. There we go. Joshua chapter 3. Let's go there. Joshua 3. It's time to cross the Jordan River. So in Joshua chapter 3, Joshua, verse 1, rose early in the morning, and they are ready to, when the spies come back, then in verse 2, at the end of the 3 days, the officers went through the midst of the camp, and they commanded the people, saying, when you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God with the Levitical priests carrying it, then you shall set out from your place and go after it. You remember in the book of Exodus and in the book of Numbers, when the tabernacle was set up, everybody camped around it. And then when the glory of God, when the cloud or the fire began to move, that was the signal to the people, time to pack up and let's follow the cloud. It's time to move along with the presence of God. Here it's a little different. When you see the Ark of the Covenant moving, when you see the priests carrying it, that's your signal. That's when you know that it's time to go. Verse 4. There will be a distance between you and the ark of about 2,000 cubits by measure. Do not come near it, that you may know the way by which you shall go, for you have not passed this way before. We're coming into a new land, a land that you've not been in before. The ark is going to lead the way, and it's going to be ahead of you by 2,000 cubits. How far is that? Okay, it's 3,000 feet. It's 1,000 yards. That's over half a mile. The ark, this picture, they're following the ark. Now, this picture comes a little bit later chronologically, okay? The priests, we'll see in a minute, stand in the water and the people pass by. That's what this is of. But when the ark first begins to move and they're moving towards the water, towards the Jordan River, it's half a mile in front of them, okay? Now, they're going to cross over the river on dry land. I love what's said in chapter 3 and verse 7. The Lord said to Joshua, "This day I will begin to exalt you in the sight of all Israel, that they may know that just as I have been with Moses, I will be with you. You shall moreover command the priests who are carrying the Ark of the Covenant, saying, when you come to the edge of the waters of the Jordan, you shall stand still in the Jordan." Verse 7 is very important. Joshua, I'm going to show to the people that just as I was with Moses, I'm going to be with you. He said that to Joshua in chapter 1, but now he's going to prove it in the sight of the whole nation. Think about what's happening here. Joshua is doing the exact same thing that Moses did when Israel came out of Egypt. They came to a body of water, and what happened? Moses stood, he raised up his hands, raised up the staff, and what did the Red Sea do? Parted, and the people walked across on dry land. Joshua, I'm going to do the same thing to you. You're going to relive the experience of Moses, as it were, and when you do that, the people will know, hey, this is what God did with Moses. Not that they were there to see that. That was in the past. That was a generation prior, but they knew about it. Joshua is going to mimic that same experience, leading the people across this body of water. And what's on the other side of that body of water? Well, Jericho. Well, yes, but what's on the other side of that Jordan River? New life, a new opportunity. Yeah, the promised land. We're going to start over. What was on the other side of the Red Sea? New life. We're starting over. We're breaking away from Egypt. They're being left behind. New life is ahead of us. Okay? All right. The Jordan River is in a flood season right now. The waters are higher, but as you saw from the pictures that Joe shared with us, this is still not like crossing over the Mississippi. Okay? But just think about the number of people that are going across, the cattle, the flocks, all of those feet, human and beast, that are going to be going across the Jordan River. This is a big undertaking. And so the priests will step into the waters along with that ark, and the waters are going to stop, and they're going to separate, and the people are going to cross over on dry ground. In Joshua chapter 3 and verse 14, the people set out from their tents to cross the Jordan with the priests carrying the ark of the covenant before the people. And when those who carried the ark came into the Jordan, and the feet of the priests carrying the ark were dipped in the edge of the water, for the Jordan overflows all its banks all the days of harvest. That's what tells us it's the flood season. The waters which were flowing down from above stood and rose up in a heap, a great distance away. The city that is of Adam, the city that is beside Zarethan, and those which were flowing down toward the sea of the Arabah, the salt sea. You remember Joe talking about that the other night? Waters coming in and waters flowing out. Sea of Galilee, Dead Sea. You remember talking about that? Yeah? Okay. That's what this is mentioning here. Those waters divided. Verse 17, the priests who carried the ark stood firm on dry ground in the middle of the Jordan, while all Israel crossed on the dry ground until all the nation had finished crossing. Now in chapter 4, Joshua tells 12 people, one man from each tribe, as you're coming across the Jordan, pick up a stone. And when we get to the other side of the river, we're going to use those 12 stones to make a memorial. And this memorial would be a reminder of what God did in this place. So in chapter 4, and in verse, I'm going to skip down to verse 8. The sons of Israel did as Joshua commanded, took up the 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan. According to the number of the tribes of the sons of Israel, they carried them over with them to the lodging place and put them down there. Joshua set up 12 stones in the middle of the Jordan at the place where the feet of the priests who carried the ark were standing, and they are there to this day. For the priests who carried the ark were standing in the middle of the Jordan until everything was completed that the Lord had commanded Joshua to speak to the people. All the people hurried and crossed, and when all the people had finished crossing, the ark and the priest crossed before the people as well. Verse 14, and this goes back to chapter 3 and verse 7. On that day, the Lord exalted Joshua in the sight of all Israel, so that they revered him, just as they had revered Moses all the days of his life. Joshua, I'm going to exalt you before all the people, he said in chapter 3 and verse 7. And that's what happened when everybody came to the other side. So why are we setting up this memorial? Verse 20. Those 12 stones which they had taken from the Jordan, Joshua set up at Gilgal. And he said to the sons of Israel, when your children ask their fathers in time to come, saying, what are these stones? Then you shall inform your children, saying, Israel crossed this Jordan on dry ground. For the Lord your God dried up the waters of the Jordan before you until you had crossed, just as the Lord had done to the Red Sea, which he dried up before us until we had crossed, that all the peoples of the earth may know that the hand of the Lord is mighty, that you may fear the Lord your God forever. Just as the Red Sea was parted, so the Jordan was parted by the power of God. Okay. You guys got anything you want to add to that? Jake? Yes. Yeah. And this generation of people, the new generation, they didn't have direct experience of the Egyptian bondage, but they did have direct experience of wandering aimlessly in the wilderness, struggling for life, dealing with what seems like a lack of direction, right? Now, God had a direction. He was working them along the entire time, and they needed faith to see that. But yes, new life on the other side of the waters, that's a biblical image that's very compelling. Good. Phil?
I see this as a significant event because when they see, it reinforces their faith in God. When they see the supernatural event happening before their eyes, and then they crossing this bare ground, this water is parting, and then they want to, and then they know that now that God's working in their lives, and that's important.
Good. Good. All right. Anybody else? Sarah.
Where that phrase in the song, "Here I raise my Ebenezer, by help I come"?
No, that actually comes in 1 Samuel.
Okay.
Samuel's going to be the one who does that. But I'm glad you're thinking about that. It's very fitting. But yes, that's 1 Samuel. Okay. Now, this to me, chapter 5 is where we're going. Chapter 5 seems somewhat anticlimactic to me. And let me explain what I mean by that, right? Chapter 1, Joshua, let's go. I'm with you. Chapter 2, spies are sent in. Rahab's help. Hey, the people in Jericho are afraid. We can do this. Let's go. Chapter 3, cross the Jordan River. Wow, this is powerful stuff. Really cool. Power of God. There's a lot of excitement in the first 4 chapters of Joshua. Wait, halt, stop the program. We have to circumcise everybody. Man, I mean, it's like the air just went out of the balloon. Okay? And then at the end of chapter 5, wait, it's time for the Passover. We got to do that. We've got to have our Passover meal first. Then in chapter 6, we'll go and take Jericho. I'm not making light of these two things. I want to make a point with us about that. When they crossed over the river and they came to this place that would be called Gilgal, they realized we have a whole slew of males who have not yet been circumcised. We weren't practicing that while we were in the wilderness, and this is a problem. In chapter 5 and verse 2, at that time the Lord said to Joshua, make for yourself flint knives and circumcise again the sons of Israel the second time. Let's make sure we understand what that means. A second time. Circumcise them again. He means we need to do it with this generation of males. It's not that the same men received 2 circumcisions. There was an earlier generation that received it, and now a new generation has come along, and the second time we need to do this, okay? Now, why do they need to do this? Well, in verse 4, this is the reason why Joshua circumcised them. All the people who came out of Egypt who were males, all the men of war died in the wilderness along the way after they came out of Egypt. All the people who came out were circumcised. That's the first generation. But all the people who were born in the wilderness along the way as they came out of Egypt had not been circumcised. For the sons of Israel walked 40 years in the wilderness until all the nation, that is the men of war who came out of Egypt, perished because they did not listen to the voice of the Lord. Okay, we haven't been doing this to the generation of males born in the wilderness. My question is, why not? And I don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure why. But for whatever the reason is, they weren't doing it. Sarah knows.
Well, I don't necessarily.
Okay, what you got?
To me, it's like we're restoring ourselves back to what we should have been, and now that all the people that rebelled, it's like them proving again they're entering into the covenant with God.
Yes.
I mean, we're doing a lot of the same things over again, the water and all that.
Yep.
So,
Yes.
It makes sense to pull it all back together. Let's start here with the brand new covenant and a new symbol of that covenant, and then we're going to go take everybody out.
Good. All right. And that's where I want to go with these two things, the circumcision and then later the Passover. What is the defining characteristic of a Jewish male? This. It's this. This is the sign, right? This goes all the way back to Abraham in Genesis 17. God said, this will be the sign of the covenant that I make with you. And from you, Abraham, a large nation of people will come, and this is the sign. So now Joshua is leading that nation into the promised land, and guess what? They are missing the defining quality that makes them a part of the covenant of Abraham.
Well, plus it distinguished them from the other people and other men.
Yeah, that's right. So, and they've been told by Moses, right? Don't mix in with these other nations. You be separate from these other nations. You be clean and holy. They are unclean and unholy through their wickedness. So we've got to do this because this is a big part, perhaps the biggest part of the covenant that God made with Abraham. And we have a whole generation of men who haven't done this. So we need to do that. Now,
Did God say to consecrate the people and the men?
yes?
They needed to be
Yes.
apart because this was the rite of passage.
Right. Yeah. Even back in chapter 3, before they crossed the water, Joshua said to consecrate the people, and this would be a big part of that, setting them apart. Good. Now then we come to the Passover that is observed in verses 10 through 12. It's been exactly 40 years since they left Egypt now. And so this is the 40th Passover that they have observed. We've got to observe this Passover, and then we're going to take Jericho. So let's think about all this has happened. We're going to mimic what happened at the Red Sea when we cross over the Jordan River. We've got to circumcise all the men, and Sarah's exactly right in the comment she made. This is the covenant that God made with our forefather Abraham, and none of the men have done that. We've got to do that. Enter into the covenant. And then after we do that, well, now the Passover is coming. And so we need to wait on Jericho, and we need to observe the Passover, because we don't need to be fighting during the Passover. Passover is the most memorable event, perhaps, of the Exodus from Egypt. It was associated with the final plague, finally the straw that broke Pharaoh's back and let the people go. And that dinner was, it was a whole new thing that Moses brought in for the people. It was one of the defining elements of the Exodus. What I'm saying to you is the Israelites are getting back to their roots. These are the defining things that make us Israelites. We've got to put those things first before we start taking cities and conquering nations. We've got to put the first things first. Let's get back to who we are, and then we'll go fight God's battles. I think that's a really important lesson for us. Before we go out and do these great things for the Lord, or what we consider to be great things for the Lord, I need to know who I am as a child of God. I need to know who God is and what God wants me to do. And I've got to make sure I've got all of those things understood before I go out and just start slinging metaphorical swords and trying to win battles. Okay, I had a couple of hands. I saw Reed over here, and then I'll come this direction.
For that reason, I had saw the circumcision and the Passover as contributing to the climax that you mentioned. Everything is positive. I mean, it may not be as exciting as Joshua's exaltation and miraculous crossing, but everything is positive. I agree that there's an anti-climax, but I saw it as coming with the word no.
It goes along with the story. Yeah.
Well, I just mean when the commander says no in response to Joshua, that to me was the curveball. Because as far as I can tell, everything that comes after that, there's no reason why you could have said, yes, we're with you. That's what you expect as the reader, is like, go take the land. Right. With us or against us, I'm the commander of God's army. I'm with you. Go take the land. But he says no, and that was just completely threw me off. And it seems like he's saying, that's the wrong question. It's not contingent on whether God's faithful. It's contingent on, are you going to be faithful to him?
Yeah. God is ready to be with you, but are you with God? And the things that are the identifying markers of you being associated with God, you haven't done those yet. And we need to do those first. Yeah, it's a very good point. Okay, Glenn and then Dad in the back.
Have they observed the Passover at all in those 40 years?
Yes. Yes. They.
Because they were eating manna and stuff like that. They didn't have the bread and the wine, things that they normally had.
Well, no, they did have access to those things, but they all had the flocks and herds with them, and so the sacrificial lamb could have been done.
Why were they still eating manna the whole time other than because it just had stopped here?
Right, when they crossed over the river, then the manna ceased. It says that the next day the manna ceased. Yeah. I don't know of any reason why they would not have been observing the Passover. I don't know of any passage that says they were not doing it. Because we know, well, that's true. They didn't observe the circumcision right. But I don't know of any reason that they would not have been able to observe the Passover. I can say it that way.
They committed themselves to the covenant. If they hadn't done the circumcision, then
Correct. Yes, correct. Well, we know that they obviously did it in Egypt the night that they left. And then from Numbers chapter 9, we know that in the second year out of Egypt, they did it then with great... Okay. Okay, I see what you're saying. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know of anything that would say they did not. I also don't know of anything that would say that they absolutely did, other than I know the first 2 years it was important that they did it. And they had Moses there. I don't think Moses would have, neglected that or forgotten that, but an interesting thought. Dad?
I said to them, today, I have taken away your reproach.
Yes.
There's a specific moment, and he expects them to remember it, that I have forgiven, I have forgiven your reproach.
Good.
The same thing we think our baptism today. We're expected to remember today to make a commitment to God.
Good, good. All right. Now, in chapter 5, when they cross over the river, this is what they would have been seeing. Well, not exactly. This is the modern area. They wouldn't have seen this. But that's the landscape that they would have been looking at. And so now this is from the city of Jericho looking back to the Jordan River. So the Jordan is going to be across this area. You can't see it from here, but it would be in that area, just at the base of that range of the hill country there. All right. Oh, man, Joe and his maps. Okay. Chapter 5, and no, I'm running out of time here. Let's go into chapter 6. In chapter 6, this is very familiar to us. I know that. So we're not going to do a lot of reading here, but I want you to see the language of the Lord in chapter 6. Start at verse 1. Jericho was tightly closed because of the sons of Israel. No one went out and no one came in. The Lord said to Joshua, "Look, I have given Jericho into your hand with its king and the valiant warriors." I have given Jericho to you. We would say, no, you haven't. Not yet. It hasn't happened yet. Jericho hasn't fallen yet. No, you haven't. But in the mind of God, this is already done. I've given this to you, Joshua. I've already done it. Now, I'm about to tell you how this is going to happen, but I have already done it. It's yours. And let's emphasize this word too. I have given you the land. You're not going to go take it. This is not going to be something that you do from your own strength. I've given this to you. This is my grace to you, Joshua. It's yours. And I'm going to make this happen. And so he says to Joshua, here are your instructions on how to take Jericho. Kind of unusual warfare strategy, isn't it? Just walk around the city, Joshua. Once a day for 6 days, walk around the city. Then on the 7th day, march around the city 7 times. And when you do that, after the 7th time around the city, blow the trumpets and just scream really loud, Joshua. And that's how you're going to take the city. Okay. Now, from a military warfare strategy perspective, this is a really dumb approach, right? That's not how you take a walled city, is it? Well, not if you're fighting by the ways of men. But why do you think God gives Joshua this ridiculous war strategy? To show the Israelites, I have given you the city. Right. Do you believe me? Are you going to do what I've said? Marching around the city and the people of Jericho looking down from those walls saying, what are these Israelites doing? Are they going to have faith in God and do what God says? And when they do, and the walls come crashing down, there is no way the Israelites are going to say, did you guys see how we took Jericho? See what we did? Huh? Did you guys see that? Pretty impressive, right? No, that's not going to happen at all. There is no doubt as to how Jericho was delivered. This would be by the power of God. God gives a very important instruction when Jericho falls. He says, everything in that city belongs to me. You don't take any of it. All the plunder, all to me. It is not yours. I just went out, didn't I? All the plunder. What'd you say? Yeah, right. All right. I'll be a little louder. All the plunder of the city, God says, you destroy everything. It's not for you to keep. It all belongs to me. And this becomes important as we roll into chapter 7 on Wednesday. But as was promised in chapter 6, verses 22 through 25, Rahab's family is spared. She puts that scarlet cord outside the window to signify this house stays. Don't touch the people inside this house. Protect them. Everyone else in Jericho is affected when the city walls fall and the city is burned to the ground. God's grace is very evident in the story. But along with God's grace, He gave the Israelites conditions that had to be met. If the Israelites never marched around the city, would those walls have fallen? God's grace plus His conditions leads to victory every time. Every battle you read about in the Old Testament where something miraculous happens, God says, I'm going to do this for you. There's some conditions you need to meet. There's some things I need you to do. And when you meet those conditions, you will be victorious. I think there's a pattern for us to see there, folks. God's grace, when combined with conditions, leads to spiritual victory too. That's a New Testament principle illustrated in these physical stories of the Old Testament. Okay, we made it. Joshua 1 through 6. Well done. Thanks, everybody.